Good morning, good morning, good morning. This is This Week in Real Estate. That guy in the outer space is Ken Pitts with First Choice Mortgage Advisors. I'm Paul Chase, a little more down to earth, which personality-wise is a complete change. I think you got my head at the start.
We should be reversing our backgrounds.
Oh, hey, what an exciting week this is going to be. Got a number of things happening. My Roku channel is coming online this week, so I'm really excited about that. And I've completely revamped the YouTube channel. So, yeah, personally, I'm cool with this. I'm down with this. I am now a television station owner. This is phenomenal.
So we get to subscribe to your channel now?
I think it's been approved. I think the subscription happens later this week.
So I could be all Paul all the time. Is that what you're telling me?
No. It's not all Paul. Nobody wants to see Paul 24/7. It ain't happening. But we are going to have some really cool stuff planned. A lot of blog articles are going to be there as well. Twire is certainly going to be there. And the other big announcement is I'm hoping that in about 20 minutes or so, we're going to have a new correspondent on This Week in Real Estate. Dara Whitmer she's going to be at least making a special report this week talking about what's happening with home staging. Actually, there's been some changes, or we're seeing new trends develop. So you're going to want to, hopefully she'll be here a little closer to the end. But talking about, for years we've been telling people to declutter. That's changing. So let's talk a little bit about what is happening in the market. And we go to this screen. New listings, 624. We're down from last month by 10%, and we're definitely down from this time last year by 12%. So we need, the trend continues of a lack of supply. Interesting thing is the number of new pendings and new listings is pretty well balanced. New pendings are up 8.4% from last year, but they are down 13% from last month. Closed sales are about where they were and have been. Sold price is $238, down just a tiny bit from last month, but up still again from last year. Now, the thing that I find most interesting, look at days on market, 29 days. Homes are selling, buyer demand is still high. The lenders are still giving money away to those that qualify. So I don't suppose you had a chance to look at credit supply at all. From what I'm seeing, it's still, like we talked about last week, I've seen credit supply. For those that qualify, it's a great time to buy. But loans are getting a little more expensive and interest rates are up slightly. Before we answer that about credit supply, let's hear what the Realtor.com lady has to say.
I'm Danielle Hale,
economist at Realtor.com, and here are this week's things you need to know. The monthly jobs report showed that businesses continue to hire, and the unemployment
rate dipped as a result. In addition to government hiring for the census, jobs are added in the retail trade, professional and business services, leisure and hospitality, and education and health services sectors. Additionally, the more recent weekly jobless claims indicator improved to its lowest post-pandemic level yet. The improvement is good, but the indicator is still 3 to 4 times a normal level. Elevated jobless claims and rising payroll jobs reflect the massive churn in the labor market as companies and individuals attempt to adjust to enormous changes in the way we live and do business in the wake of the coronavirus and economic recession. Mortgage rates ticked up slightly this week, but remain well below 3%. With little change in mortgage rates, we saw applications for home purchase mortgages stay essentially flat from last week. However, low rates are still giving a substantial boost to purchase mortgage activity compared to this time last year. Our August housing trends report was released this week, and the data shows that while mortgage rates are buyer-friendly, there are other challenges to contend with. Home prices rose a hefty 10% as inventory dipped, resulting in nearly 500,000 fewer homes for sale in August than the same time last year. It's difficult to imagine that the housing market will be able to sustain the frenzied demand we are currently experiencing. But we have yet to see any signs of slowing. Buyer traffic on Realtor.com is outpacing the record levels we saw earlier this year, suggesting that demand will likely continue to exceed the number of homes available for sale. While demand is much more intense than it normally is this late into a home buying season, the typical home asking price has likely peaked for the year at $350,000 in August. Still, sellers will remain in the driver's seat for the foreseeable future, and buyers should be prepared. Find more details and data for download at Realtor.com/research or follow us on Twitter for real-time updates.
Okay, so thank you, Danielle. So the economy ticks along, but for how long is the demand going to be there?
Well, it's going to be interesting to see really what happens in the job market in the next 6 to 10 months, because if we can continue to absorb people back into the workforce, because she's right, our unemployment numbers, although they're getting better, they're still kind of rough. And if we can absorb more people into the workplace, it could generate more buyers and continue to push this narrative of not enough homes for sale, more buyers than sellers. And interesting thing, and I was going to make a quick comment because I was looking at your slides in the last piece, and it looked like for August, you're at 29 days was the average days on market, which was the lowest out of the last 5 years for that month. And what we're probably going to see that trend continue for September and October. Now, normally September is usually a slower month, and it slows up going into October and continues to slow through the end of the year. We're not seeing that. I mean, this is the most active purchase September I've experienced. I've been doing this for 30 years. I've never seen this much sales activity going on in a September. A lot of my buyers, it's interesting because I was interested in looking at your slide there, because for me, actually, the last 2 weeks of August got pretty quiet with purchase activity. And man, as soon as September hit, it took off. And we've been really busy with purchase business for September. So I'm expecting that days on market to go down for the September slide, and to see that the sales activity, new pendings is going to go up for you in September is my guess.
I'm curious to know or to see if the prices have gotten so high, are buyers being squeezed out of the market? Yeah, money's cheap for those that qualify, but have prices gotten so high that people just don't have the income to support the adjusted prices?
I haven't seen that as much because when you get a 0.5% move in interest rates, that jumps your affordability a lot. And we've certainly dropped to more than 0.5 point. We're close to a good solid point down from, where we were. Actually, we're more than that from where we were a year ago. So I think that there's probably still some bandwidth there. But as was just mentioned on the video, we're starting to achieve the peak. We're probably getting close to the peak of it. So I think buyers have been able to absorb it because of interest rate. There's going to be a point where that's going to stop. But what I really find interesting is that I'm starting to see buyers, their credit kind of be more rough. We look at what we do from a pre-approval activity, and we get a certain amount of pre-approval activity every month. People that are starting to look for homes, want to get out into the market. I'm noticing that the credit quality is starting to slough off. That's not unusual for this time of the year. Generally speaking, we get all the active high credit people buy through the first 6-7 months of the year, and then generally you see the credit quality drop off. So I am seeing that. The problem for this year is that there are not as many alternatives for lower credit score borrowers. and they're going to find it a little bit harder. And Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac both tightened up their guides in June to where we're getting a lot more, with the title is refer, which means that it's not an approvable loan. We'll get a refer eligible or refer ineligible, depending on the credit and income profile of the borrower. So I'm also seeing that trend where I'm having more people that just are not getting approved, and then we just are sitting down trying to come up with a plan for, okay, how do you become a viable buyer, and working through that. For some people, that means they're sitting on the sidelines for a year, either getting their credit straightened out or increasing their length of time on maybe a second job, or maybe increasing their assets to get into a different program.
Are we going to start to see that? Well, I know that the forbearance rate was, last the numbers I saw were still at about 7.5%. So, and those are people that are still in forbearance. That's not just new forbearance filing. That's people that are still in forbearance. With all the mortgages out there, that's still a huge, huge number. And I'm starting to see more reports about economists saying 2021 may be a rough year economically. Are you seeing anything like that?
Well, there's definitely some concerns for 2021 because it's still unclear how much of the job market is going to return. We've lost some business permanently because of the COVID shutdowns, and so if you're going to have more people out of work, you're not going to have as many people that are generating income into the economy, and just generally has a slowing effect and a little bit of a hangover that we're going to have going into 2021. So there is some real concerns about the overall economy and how that's going to rebound. We were shut down for quite a while. That's just lost revenue. It's not coming back, and it's just how do you pull out of that? Obviously we had a big government stimulus plan to try and help that, but is that going to be enough? Is that really going to do the trick? And only time will tell. So I think a lot of economists are looking at that saying, all right, we're not seeing this great bounce back effect. If anybody was watching last night's town hall, it was brought up about, and we talked about this way early in T-Wire about, what's the shape of the recovery? Is it going to be a V? Is it going to be a W? And now they're starting to talk about this K-shaped recovery, where some folks are doing well and some folks are not doing well. And it's, you just have this inversion like this, where you got some people are doing real well because of COVID and some people aren't. That's a concern. I think that's where the concern is with the economists, that maybe we're really not getting a V-shaped recovery or even a W-shaped recovery where it recovered and dropped off and it goes back up again. And we might have this funky one where we really have a split between haves and have-nots, which is a shame to see. And, I think whatever party gets into power, they're going to have to address that going into, this upcoming year.
Yeah, and I'm starting to wonder, one of the things that Danielle mentioned, and I wanted to touch on this before my dementia set in, but the government's been hiring a lot for census takers. Well, at some point, every nose is going to get counted and every door is going to get knocked on. So those are temporary jobs at best. Do those people become COVID contact tracers? Where do those people go when the census jobs dry up? Because eventually they will. They're certainly not going into the hospitality industry.
Well, and I agree. I mean, that's true. We're probably going to see, and we're seeing that now. We're going to see some innovation of product, particularly in not just in response. It's being used as a response to COVID, but it's probably going to be used in general. That's going to open up some new industries. But for example, I mean, there's a company that has a robotic system for. It was designed to clean large passenger ships, the Carnival Cruise Line type ships. The airline industry is going to pick those up, and they're going to start to institute those. And you're going to have, people that got to be able to run those machines, maintain those machines, and produce those machines. There's a whole industry that's going to grow out of this with a product, and it's going to create its own niche, and they're going to grow. So you're going to see some growth. It always happens when there's change and innovation. You see a growth in different industries, and so I think we're going to see some of that come out of this, and that's going to take workers in a different direction, and probably be some decent paying jobs as a result of that. So I look, how many DoorDash and Grubhub people are driving right now? I mean, those were interesting things. Oh yeah, I can get my food delivered. Well, now people have gotten a pattern of doing that. They're saying, well, why do I need to go out? I'll just order in. And, it's developed its own, it's kind of developed its own momentum. And if that momentum continues after, COVID, you may have an industry that's going to grow.
You're assuming there is an after COVID. I'm not convinced. I think those are going to remain in place for a good long time.
Yeah, I mean, but if history tells us anything, you always have to look to history. It's not the first time the world's had a pandemic. They do run their course, and it's going to happen. It's going to run its course. When, how much destruction? Those are the unknowns. But they do run their course. I mean, eventually, they just, for lack of a better term, I'm not a technical person, but they kind of burn themselves out. It's happened, for our entire existence in the human race. So, it's going to happen at some point.
Well, okay, I guess I should rephrase it. The virus itself is going to run its course. I'm not so sure the restrictions are ever going to go away.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to see, how we react to things. I mean, if you look at Asia, it's commonplace non-pandemic times for people to wear masks. I mean, they've adopted that as policy over there just to not spread disease.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still looking at the shutdowns, wedding venues and bar restrictions, all of those places where people gather. I mean, look, even churches are, I know in Kansas, churches to a large extent are still virtual. Here, my own church is down, they're restricting attendance, and they've gone to extra services to accommodate the congregation that's shown up, just because now we're forced into social distancing. Those are the things I think are going to have an impact, certainly on the economy, people's willing to buy, and the jobs that we have. That's the reason Grubhub going out there. I'm doing far more drive-through when we go out to eat. No, going out to eat now means going out to pick it up and bring it back.
Yeah, and I think it depends on how long we stay in these patterns, these new patterns. People are creatures of habit, and if we've now developed new patterns, are we going to stay in those patterns, or are we going to go back? That's going to be the interesting, sociological study that goes on after this thing is do we go back to old patterns, or do we just develop new ones and we continue going down that path? That'll be a very interesting study to look back on, several years from now and see how we actually have reacted as a species. What changes are going to remain and which ones are we going to go revert back to? It'll be interesting to see.
Well, from my study of history and my former life as an engineer, you never go back. Things are things are permanently changed, and they're always changing. You never ever go back. So as much as I hate the phrase, but we're working towards redefining normal. I refuse to use that other phrase. But normal is being redefined.
Yeah. It's going to be a really, but who takes advantage of it and how they take advantage of it, I think is the beauty of this country in terms of innovation. I mean, we have a tendency to take situations like this and be able to create from it. And it's been our history, from the beginning, that we've always been able to take things, and even the most, negative things like have happened now, be able to turn those into opportunities and new markets. It's just the way we think. So and we're starting to see it. We're starting to see innovations that, people wouldn't have thought about, but now they're like, look at something as simple as Zoom. We're working on it right now. It was there, people were using it. It's become a mainstay, and there'll be competitive products to it, and there'll be advances and changes to it. So, I think there's always a good side to everything, and that's probably one of them. We're going to see a lot of innovation and probably some new markets develop out of it. If you look at, and we talked about this before, if you look at 2008, man, the shift to small self-employed people was immense. 2009, 10, 11, people just were like, I'm not working for that company anymore and be afraid of being cut off. I'm working for myself. And you saw a lot of innovation, a lot of people go into business for themselves as a result of a really negative economic event in 2008. But it was great that how many small businesses developed and grew out of that, and were encouraged to, and people took it upon themselves to say, I'm going to worry about my own existence. I'm not going to rely on somebody else. So it's that innovation, I think, that makes this country great.
So, okay, we are running just about out of time. Looks like Adair we got our signals crossed with Adair. Hopefully she'll be, I'm really hoping I can make her part of the show for next week. We can talk about, she's going to add some class to the show. So
that's not hard to do.
We can, but we'll be talking about some of the trends that are going on in interior design and get away from so much economic news and numbers. So, Ken, as always, we will talk to you next week, and hope you have a good week.
Thank you, Paul. Have a great one.